Thanks and welcome. Thanks for having me. As Patrick mentioned, Luuk Sombezki. My formal role is that I'm a team lead of reward. So I'm a seasoned compensation and benefits professional. But over the course of the years, I also focus much more on employee experience. So I'm not a technical guy. I didn't understand the last slides of the previous presentation, but Patrick explained to me. So I'll be sharing much more about why we've moved towards AX, how we are approaching that, and also some key deliverables, after which Patrick will follow up with all the details and the techniques. So first, the why of customer experience. And there's a famous quote over service design. And service design is actually what makes you go to one coffee shop instead of the other and tell all your friends and family to come along with you and come back and come back and come back. So if you focus only on the beans or on the coffee for that sake, and maybe even a small heart of latte art, what actually drives the experience, sorry, Patrick, even een glasje water ook alsjeblieft, yeah. Is the fact that they're offering free Wi-Fi, a personal note to your cup, a smile, intimacy, and that makes you even pay I actually paid this morning £4 for a cup of coffee, instead of only having to pay only €1. And if we would flip that paradigm to employee experience, it works the same for us. So again, we use service design to make sure that our people come back to our bank for our products, but also for us as an employer, and tell all their friends and family about that, and keep coming back as well. So over the years, we focus maybe much more on, let's say, the basics, employment. I pay you money, you will do work for me. And we're switching much more to the, let's say, the engagement part to really drive productivity. But we are now heading much more towards this game, of course stolen from the customer experience team. Because if we are able to really create brand ambassadors of our employees, it will become much easier for them to sell their products to our clients, but also to engage with their friends and family to also come work for us so that we are able to attract and hire the right talent. Employee experience, I think next to agile, one of the key trends of the past years. And I wanted to share briefly how our journey looked like over the past years. So we already started back in 2016. So back then we had the challenge where we needed to reduce cost by 30%. Because we were spending too much money for all staff functions. And because 30% is a lot, we took on a new approach to redesign the way HR works, so our HR strategy, but also how we are structured. And there the first thoughts on employee experience already started. So before building the new organization, which we did based on a zero-based approach, we engaged with our business leaders, employees, and also our HR employees, to let them tell us what they think about HR, if we would call ourselves the administrators, as being shared this morning. And one quote that still stuck with me today is that one person described HR back then as the policy machine gun. And that's actually not the vision we had in mind on delivering up on HR. So we set up a new structure, really focusing on the employees rather than our business leaders, and also on the policies and structures. And we had a kickstart in 2017. But back then, there was not really much about employee experience out there. There were not much companies doing that already. Maybe you have companies like Zappos and Airbnb, but that's about it. Certainly not in banking. So we collaborated a lot with our customer experience team, because they are already on this journey for like 10, 15 years. So we build on employee personas, employee journeys, but also impact matrices to give us a focus on where we should prioritize in our efforts to really increase the experience for the employees. And after that, we were able to drive our first results, and we focus on 3 things. So it's performance management. It was a real big dissatisfier for our employees, for our managers and HR, actually the whole company. Onboarding, and also the way people are interacting with HR. So we had previously a service model where if you were like up to 3 layers below the exec level, you would get support, and below that, you just have to figure it out yourself. Well, it's actually those employees who need your help the most. So we flipped that as well. And now we're in 2019, where employee experience is embedded in our corporate strategy. So not only in the HR strategy, but even our corporate strategy. So it's embraced by the whole company. We are able to measure the employee Net Promoter Score, which is Patrick will be sharing much more later on. And we are upscaling our service design capability to ensure that people are coming to our bank and not to another company, and keep telling their friends and family about that as well. I want to share an example of how we work within HR nowadays. And this is the example of how we built the reward strategy in Q4 of last year. And as a seasoned complement professional, for me it's easier to explain. So what we did, we embraced different methodologies. So we used design thinking, service design, value proposition design as a methodology to really create a persona, to focus on and empathize with their needs, to design the reward package that they would need for us to attract them. And instead of focusing on the solution, but much more on the problem, we use Lean Startup as a methodology. So we have, in over a quarter, we've done over 10 experiments with over 100 employees, but also over 100 just people, random people, non-employees. People who might be able to join ABN AMRO based on their skills, but might not consider us as well. So even I stand on a platform, so a train platform in a station, interviewing people and giving them choices and see what their feedback would be to really empathize with their needs and their behavior. And we also, this is a big trend again, we use Agile Scrum for this as well. So we did 2 weekly sprints in which we had all relevant people in one room doing our review. So that could be business leaders, but also the people in HR who are responsible for negotiating all the new deals that we thought of. But also it was for us a way to create a focus, to say, okay, what do we need to do the next 2 weeks to really advance this? But also to have one centralized discussion. Instead of having all those backroom meetings, one-on-ones, informing everybody. So you have now business leaders, employees, and those responsible for the product itself in one room, and could have the discussion on it as well. And this is the last thing I wanted to share. So this is the last experiment we did. So we had 4 options. As you can see, it's white label because we didn't want to confuse our people that it might be a bank. And we asked them, okay, what do you think is the most appropriate employee value proposition for you? This being our current one, these 2 being our competitors, and the last one is the new one we designed. And over 50% of the people chose the new one compared to our current one, and compared to that of the competitor. So that was really a great achievement. But still, that's a struggle with service design as methodology. It's very time consuming, so we were not able to ask over thousands of people. So we did the same survey with our employees in later stage to see what they would think and if they would come up with the same results, which they did. So it strengthened our feeling that we are heading in the right direction. Some few examples. Yeah, I'm skipping up your time, but it's only a few minutes now. So what we've done, and I also want to share the approach. So this is something I actually seen also in the 90s already. We call it the My Benefit Snapshot. It's an annual overview employees get every year on their consumption on compensation benefits. So how many time have you taken off? Did you make use of the sabbatical policy? Did you buy a bicycle? Of course, we're Dutch, so that's a popular one. But we're also providing opportunities to, let's say, purchase a wearable to get more feeling on your health and well-being. And me being a specialist, I actually wanted to build an online tool, app, 24/7, all the latest data in it, do simulations of if you made any changes to your working hours, those kind of things, which of course a very big project would be. But then we asked our employees if they would like that as well. And they actually came up that, for me, rewards is important, but not that important as it is to you. So if you would provide me just an overview once per year, I'm already happy with that. So instead of building a 200K tool, which nobody wanted, we could also build a PDF, which now costs €3 a piece to send out. And now after 3 years, because we are getting also the CSAT information, those kind of things, they said, okay, let's do some simulations as well. Another thing is that it's an email we send every month to our employees to capture that their salary is on their way. So we noticed that around the 20th of the month, a lot of people are searching on the intranet on salary payment dates and clicking on the website where it is available. So we figured out that's probably information that people want and need. So we're just sending out emails, not big fancy things, just one email, one guy's handling it. And we noticed that only 20% of other people opted out. So 80% of the people are still finding it relevant. And now we are seeing if we can adopt it into our HR portal to have it more online as an information. In due time, I will skip Together and Better. If you want to have more information, it's our new performance management methodology. But I want to share a short movie with you guys, and I'll tell you a little bit about it later.
To recruit IT talent, Dutch bank ABN AMRO reached out in a different way.
I need your skills on something.
The Lockdown, the world's first mobile AR escape room. Solve 18 interactive 3D challenges. You can pinch, rotate, and even walk through in a 360 soundscape. Experience the tech behind the world of modern-day banking in an engaging storyline about blockchain, AI, and info security. Turn any room into a virtual escape room.
Please don't be afraid.
And save the world from a financial meltdown.
Clear.
We launched the game at Europe's biggest tech conference.
The next web.
It reached 73% of our target audience, became the most upvoted AR post on Reddit of all time, and generated an astonishing 90,000 minutes of gameplay, in which talent discovered all the possibilities within the bank.
Het is spannend en een beetje, je voelt zich geheimagent eigenlijk. Dat is iets waar je als dataspecialist denk ik stiekem toch wel naar op zoek bent.
Van de look vond ik heel erg interessant. Beetje stoer.
Ik heb wel heel veel gegamed zeg maar vroeger. Ja, dus mij altijd was vrij snel te pakken.
Results have already exceeded expectations by over 30%, and new applications keep coming in. Oh, and about a next mission?
You can't always get what you want. You'll get what you need.
The QR code, you can download the app, by the way. So if you are interested to play, it's indeed the first augmented reality escape room. It's non-branded at first, so it plays in like 2040, and you need to solve a financial crisis, which based on blockchain. And it really helped us build an IT brand which we want to be. So over a quarter of our employees are IT people, but almost none of them consider themselves working for a bank and work on creative solutions. So instead of saying, hi, do you want to work for a bank? We really said, okay, we need to get into their world, see what drives them in order to get them and also tell them that it can be very cool to work at ABN AMRO as well. So we did this in collaboration with the Next Web, because that's their platform where they are involved as a target audience. And once you completed the game, by then you will see that it's from ABN AMRO. And then we'll, of course, if you're able to complete the game, then you should be up for hire for us as an ITer, of course. And I'll leave it to Patrick to share the rest of the story.
Thank you. So you like the examples? Yeah, especially the lockdown. And I think it's a challenge for us to know every moment in the year which of the things we need to boost in terms of employee experience. How do we know that in a more continuous way? So that's a little bit what I want to talk about. I think I need to be here. There we go. So just explain a little bit first on what we call our listening framework. 3 steps, pretty easy, I hope. Step 1 is start listening, and not only in a way using surveys or feedback tools, but please, there's a lot of information already in your systems about our employees, the use of benefits, leave, training interventions. And I think the cool part is that you can combine that data. You can combine transactional data with survey data, pulse data, and find insights, maybe find new personas. So maybe new managers have specific needs that you wouldn't be able to find if you only look at a survey or only look at transactional data. So start listening and do it in an active and passive way. Active for us is just a definition, is the survey data, and passive is what's already in the system. So we actively ask our employees to give feedback on what they think. And in the end, I forgot to tell you, in the end, for us, it's all about having employees experience the best career they can possibly have within our organization, right? So that's what it's all about. So we will start listening with them more and more, and it's now 3 months already running, our employee experience survey, but it's all about what do you need in your career. And there's a difference between maybe, there are some great employee experience frameworks out there, but they are very, how do you call it, comprehensive. But you not want to ask everything all the time on every journey to your employees. So we decided to go a little bit around that and start with a simple questionnaire, just 4 questions. What do you think about your career? Do you feel appreciated? Are you an ambassador for our organization? And why are you and why are you not? And I will talk about the analytics in a while, in a few slides. 2 is love the problem. So don't go immediately for the shiny apps or tools or whatever is out there. And there's a lot of good stuff out there. But specifically our senior management, and they're all human, like me, they like fancy stuff. They like new dashboards, they like the apps, they like the wearables, but it's not always the solution to the problem. So you have to do your analytics, connect the data, understand it, and really deep dive on it before you go for that solution. So that's step 2. That's where people analytics, my cup of tea, comes in, of course. And then 3, experiment, try a solution. That's where you can try the shiny stuff if you want. But it's not only AI that is a possible solution based on the problem you find. Sometimes it's just communicating stuff or altering or adjusting a training. So I also want to emphasize that a lot of the solutions are not even in the technology area. It can be offline interventions as well. So this is basically what we're trying to do in a continuous basis. Listening, connecting data, deep dive on the analytics, and try a solution. Next slide is more about the active part, so the survey part of collecting our data. So if you look at how do we actively listen, we have we do multiple things. So from left up to right bottom. Of course, we also still have an employee engagement survey. Who has an employee engagement survey? Pretty much everyone. Is it annual by showing hands? Right? So we had an annual survey 2 years ago as well as the only thing we had in place. So that was the only moment we asked our employees, how are you doing? And we changed that a little bit in the last years. We also have an employee experience survey, which is a monthly survey. And I already talked about it a little bit. It's about, are you an ambassador? Do you feel appreciated, motivated? Do you think you can develop? With open questions. So the open questions for us are key. So we had to step up in terms of text mining, topic detection. We got a good kick boost by Organization View Andrew, who's sitting right there. Hi, Andrew. So it's good if you need some help on any topic to boost your team's capability, in our case with Andrew. It's always good to do. And from there, my team start doing supervised topic detection if people are interested. Afterwards, I can talk to you about it. But we believe in the context of open questions and all the data that's brought in, that it's better to really listen to your employees, what do you think, instead of asking them closed questions, which presumes kind of that you already know where the problem is. Huh? You scope it a little bit. So we like the open questions approach. So employee experience every month. I'm going to show you a slide with a snapshot of the dashboard we share with our process owners. So that's something we do. We have an employee community, which is ePanel software. In our case, MWM2, which is a Dutch company, but I'm sure, who uses ePanel discussion software? Nobody? It's like asking 600 volunteers within our company. They volunteer for it. You can ask any topic on HR. Do you like our new Together Better approach? What did you think of the lockdown? Can we improve something? And you have these discussion threads. They are kind of monitored by people within the organization. And it gives you a more of a qualitative extra insights on top of the surveys you already do. Right? So that's our employee community. We do pull surveys, benefits, satisfaction surveys, senior management or leadership surveys. We have our HR satisfaction surveys, which is more the transactional part. Once we've done something, you ask your client, did you like it? Would you recommend us or not? And I think Luuk already talked about if you have all this information, you find a top 5 of dissatisfiers of your employees, you should deep dive and do service design and try to figure out what the best solution is to the problem. So this is kind of our survey landscape that we built it in the last year. A year before, we didn't have this. We only had the employee engagement survey. So this is a screenshot of our EX dashboard, which was in the first case only for our analytical team. But when we showed it to our process owners, for instance, talent acquisition, succession management, they pretty much liked it. So what do you see here? Based on topic detection, you have some first categorizations towards the process owner. So are people talking about people development, reward transformation, or something else? Right? And if you select people development, you see the subtags that talk about training, development opportunities, learning, the dialogue, the performance dialogue, etc. And here you have more information on what are they saying. So you can actually go through the list of comments. And on another page in the dashboard, you can actually use filters and search queries to deep dive on the topics. And they love it. It's very simple. This is done in MicroStrategy within half a day. It's not that difficult. We're not too satisfied with it yet, but it helps our process owners every month now to look at what people are really saying. And what are the main topics? Management, HR can think what they want, what's on the mind of employees, but here we are actually asking them and learning what they're really thinking about. So this is our dashboard about process owners, topics, and some of the details. So our analytics on EX, on employee experience specifically, is, well, I talked about it already, topic detection. What are people talking about? But of course it's interesting to know, are topics disappearing? Right? If people are dissatisfied with leadership and they are specific about it and we can do an intervention, we hope in 2, 3, 4 months that topic disappears, right? That would make sense, otherwise we're not doing the right interventions. So finding the topics is one thing, but following them in time and seeing if there's a trend is very important. We can do topic modeling, maybe too technical, but you can, if you talk about specific topics, you can get a value for that and you can save it to the data set on an individual level, and you can actually start to predict what topics drive the scores that we see in our engagement survey, or even business impact, client satisfaction. So the unstructured data coming from the open questions are kind of structured back to the data set, so you can use that information to see, does it matter that people complain about a specific topic? Or in what area is it more impactful on net promoter score or sales? And that's where, in the end, we can prove or disprove the business case for EX, right? Experiments, we're doing a lot of experiments about connecting different data sets, finding new personas. We're trying to connect our contact HR data with what we find in the different surveys. So that's very helpful in better tagging all the service requests that come in our contact center, for instance. And of course, all the data that we collect is great to include in our people analytics research that we do anyway, right? So it's more data. Okay, that's about our EX. How much time do we have left? 15? Oh, that's cool. All right, we have a few slides left, actually 2. these are our 10 golden rules of continuous employee listening. And if you listen carefully, what you did, you probably know that we talked about a few of these already. So we decided maybe it's better to ask you which one of these you want us to talk about instead of going through them sequentially. So which one do you want us to explain? Anyone? All right. You want to take that?
The rocket, yeah, this one. Okay. So what Patrick actually already shared is that we have the dashboard available. So we have all the data, and we ask people frequently what they find. But it wouldn't be as useful if we didn't use the data to really develop our products. So, so we really engage with the process owner. So we have, that's their role, and they are the owner. One single owner was also in the EY presentation for their process. So we ask them as well to engage with the employees. We ask them to also send out the CSAT survey. But also, if you have a topic in the e-community which Patrick shared, you are obliged to get back to the community and tell them how you are going to use those insights and what are you actually going to change. So,
yeah, maybe on top of that, it's always a risk, specifically for my team, just to love the data, deep dive, and do a lot of analytics, and losing the perspective of, okay, we need to do something with these insights, right? So it's about, that's why we opened up that dashboard you just saw immediately. In month number 1, process owners were able to look at the data, even though it wasn't that perfect yet, and even though we didn't look at the data in a way we would normally do before releasing it. So it's driving actions is already on a survey-based, with some intelligent topic detection, already very powerful for process owners to perform some of the actions.
Hi, Patrick. Very clear as always, and very engaging.
Thanks.
Very engaging and very clear as always. I'm just interested in how you thought about resourcing the project, both from your team and from other teams, and what kind of timescales you had in mind to get to those incremental milestones, starting small, building incrementally upon that.
Well, you look at my team, 10 people. By the way, only 3 of them are kind of data scientists. We work on the different surveys you saw, not only EX, but more surveys, and we have strategic workforce planning in the team. So the capacity is limited, as you can imagine. But we're pretty confident that we can do the monthly survey. By the way, we use a platform from Willis Towers Watson. It's not the only one, but in our case, we already had it implemented in some way. So security-wise, it was all there. So that's what we're using. It's very useful for us. We can easily do it capacity-wise, run it. We can easily do the topic detection and fill the reports. But that's my team. I mean, then if you have the 5 top dissatisfiers, what is happening? It's not per se only me or my team that's driving the responsibility to take some action, right? So thought leaders like Luuk, all the process owners, doing the service design to use deeper analysis on what's really happening. If somebody's complaining about onboarding, other people will deep dive and look at the touch points, the highs and lows, and find more information on that. So it's a HR collaborative, exercise to do everything. It starts with the analytics, but I feel very much supported by the rest of HR. And we also more and more work in an agile way, so people join for a specific problem and go back to other work. So it's flexible.
Yeah, and it's actually more also the way we work nowadays. So we used to, let's say, write the policy, put it online, and then send everybody comply or die. We're now really making a shift. For instance, our performance management team, they started off as a project team, but they're still around. So there's now an agile team doing sprints of 3 weeks, and every 3 weeks do a retro as well, but also a review, sorry, looking for the word. And there you have also people from the business, employees involved, so they are co-creating the solutions. So it's not that we are doing on top of it, it's just that we change the way we think and work. Yeah.
Do we answer your question? Yeah? I just want to emphasize, more room for question, but let's not forget this one, right? Employee experience is not HR only. So we engage with IT, with facility management. We also have a question included from this month actually about how do you feel about the tooling and facilities to do your work properly, something like that. It's not the exact question, but something like that. And it's signed as a signature, not only from our CHRO, but also from IT and facilities. So we see this survey as a real joint effort with other areas within ABN AMRO, right? Does it make sense? Yeah?
I'm just looking at the...
Sorry, can you just take the microphone?
Oh, yeah.
Cheers.
Yeah, so I'm kind of drawn to the measure frequently and differently, as this is almost the start of the process. So I'm interested to know how you decided on your strategy around what to ask, when to ask, and how to ask, and how that affected your take-up rates for surveys, etc.
Yeah, I think there's a few slides back, you saw a little bit the different types of surveys we send out, and also transactional data I talked about that we also use. So it's doing different things. It's not only that annual survey. By the way, it's not getting rid of the annual survey for us as well. It's a combination of pulls, HR satisfaction surveys, the monthly survey, and the transactional data. And that they all have different frequencies, right? And some of them are very extensive, some of them are open questionnaire. And I think it's if you will reach the maturity to collect all that data in an efficient way, in a continuous way, and we have to learn a lot about that as well, to be honest. But I think that's one of the core competences to do this right. So if you have a question, you have all that data already combined, integrated in an efficient way, you're faster in answering the business questions at hand. So for me, it's all about, I call it the second wall of HR, right? The first wall was from prescriptive to predictive, and now it's from ad hoc analysis, doing a survey once in a while, looking at transactional data, to doing that continuously, because you have all the data available for you. Is that an answer to your question? Yeah? I see 2 people. You were first.
How and where do you measure the effectiveness of your actions that you implement?
Of the interventions based on the EX? Well, we first have to come up with the interventions first, really on the EX. But in general, when we look at interventions, you can do a lot about finding the effects of that intervention, right? With difference in difference comparisons. You have a control group, you have people who do the intervention. The downside is, if we find something that's really interesting, management says, okay, let's do it. And they're not so interested in having a control group or let's first do it here in the organization. No, let's go for it. And that's sometimes, in our case, complicated to have that good control group. But there are lots of ways. We looked at a learning intervention within our retail organization. They had a lot of modules focused on Net Promoter Score. So the goal was to maximize Net Promoter Score. And based on our analysis, we found that 3 out of 10 weren't effective at all. So it's not about completely throwing away that program, but fine-tuning 3 modules in this case, getting rid of them. And we also saw that different people were not benefiting from the other 7 in the same way. So it's also about who do you invite. And those kinds of insights you can draw from doing those types of intervention-based analysis. And we're definitely going to do that here, but only when it's a lot of money, when it's strategically core to what you're trying to do. You're not going to do analytics on every small intervention, if that makes sense for you. So, but to be honest, on the EX interventions, when we start measuring it from a monthly basis, we didn't do the analytics. But Luuk gave an example on the lockdown, where we definitely saw impact on our brand as an IT employee, right? So that's maybe another example.
I think one of the key reasons why we also use this to really focus on the problem, so that we don't jump into conclusions too soon and build a solution that nobody is adopting towards. So all the data also helps us to say no to a lot of things. So which makes us in the end effective, because we haven't spent those resources on things that nobody actually wanted to have or use.
Sorry, can you take the microphone? Thank you.
You mentioned personas several times. Could you tell more about how do you create these personas, assign employees to personas, and then personalize your interventions? Thank you.
I have a technical answer, but maybe you...
So it's not necessary that we say, okay, Luuk, you fit to that persona, because then we would have, like, in the end, 16,000 or 20,000 personas, because I believe everybody is unique. But the persona itself really helps us empathize with the need of a more generic group of people. So it really, at least from our end, we really use it to see, okay, this is somebody that everybody is familiar with, more or less, but it doesn't represent necessarily 50% of the organization. But because you tap into the needs and the behavior and just who a person is, really helps you to really focus on their needs and their problems rather than the solutions you were trying to push from HR. But in the end, and if we look at the data and we see that a specific group of people all say the same, then we try to grab those and also interview those. So for instance, for the reward strategy, we said we want to, if we differentiate on rewards, we want to focus on high performers. So we did specific experiments with people who only flagged as high performer compared to the others. But we did a second experiment with people who are like just consistent performers to see what their needs or how they would respond or react to those same solutions.
Yeah, and maybe to add from a more maybe technical or data perspective, for us it's very interesting to see if the data tells us a specific persona is interesting to look at. For instance, if you see that people, specific gender, age group, or engagement levels, or topics they talk about, can be identified as, okay, this is a group we didn't define up front, but they apparently have the same characteristics and talk a lot about specific topics. It helps you to put your interventions focused on this group as well. So for me, persona is also about maybe talking about it in marketing terms. It's also a way of communicating. But persona thinking for me is, can we find groups of people that are similar, that have specific needs that we didn't see before without the data? Yeah? Still in time? Can we take more questions? Yeah? In the back?
Sorry.
You have to run for it today.
Hi. I think you mentioned in your talk about storing kind of what topics people were talking about at a kind of individual level. And I was just wondering how you kind of managed doing that against potentially an employee expectation of anonymity when they're completing surveys.
Okay. So it's the GDPR question, right? So every data we use, if it's survey-based or transaction-based, are we allowed to use it? I think we had a sort of a journey here. And 2 years ago, I would say, every time we do research or we use data, we check with legal and we check with compliance. Is the goal that we have compliant or in relation with all the data sources we're using? And I guess that's kind of also the basics of GDPR currently, right? Only it's now a little bit easier for us. We have a privacy statement sent out or referred to with every survey and every research we do, where it states what we can do and we can't do. And I'm happy with the privacy statement because it actually in reality means we can do pretty much everything. But you can exclude if you want. So we have a process in place if you don't want specific data to be included in research. And now legal and compliance together, but a little bit pushed by HR, has made a framework as well, where you can ask specific questions about the goal, the sources. We always anonymize, so I am generally not interested in individuals. I'm only interested in groups and in the larger relationships and clusters that you find in your workforce. So we do anonymize it, we do encrypt it, but of course that's not always enough. If you have a look at the data or it's hacked somewhere, maybe you can pinpoint to some individuals based on characteristics. But having said that, anonymizing, encrypting it, and making sure that framework with all the risk attached to GDPR is answered in the right way, it turns up red, amber, green, and if it's amber or red, we need to talk to legal and see how we pursue. So we take it very seriously. But if you do your analytics, that's maybe another point I want to make. If you do your analytics for the benefit of your employees as well, it's less a thingy. It's not a legal argument, but it's less a thingy. If you do your analytics and people don't trust what you do with it because I don't know, maybe you want to fire people or you're looking at absenteeism and it's all organizational benefits, I think more and more a shift is going within people analytics that you do your analytics for the good of the people. And then it's, well, again, not a legal argument, but it's less troubling. Did I answer your question? Or not at all?
No, at which point do you anonymize it? So do you...
As soon as we can. So if you have 2 data sets or 3 and we want to combine it, and they're all different persons as well. So one person connects it, you need to have the identifier, otherwise you can't do it. Then you anonymize it, you encrypt it. And all the analysis from there are done at that anonymized data set. So as soon as possible. Yeah?
So we're almost at time, but we'll do one more question. Yeah.
Last question. In the back.
Hi. So the employee listening is obviously part of the employee experience. You mentioned that there is quite a few surveys that you run, an employee experience survey, an employee engagement survey, and so on. And I wanted to ask more from the employees' side, how do they firstly perceive all these different surveys in regards to also survey fatigue, but
good question.
Also how do you guys can obviously serve these surveys on the best possible way for the employee's experience in regards to translating them for the right audiences, sending them at the right time. And I'm mostly asking on your third point about measuring frequently and differently, but also offering the best employee experience.
Yeah, great question, thanks. So there are 2 answers maybe or maybe 2 questions in there. Yeah, that's okay. I didn't talk at all about sampling, by the way, right? I think having a sampling strategy is one of the best answers to avoid survey fatigue. That's what we do with our monthly employee experience survey. We send it out to 10-12% of our organization. So sampling management is a big task we do within our team. Didn't talk about it, my apologies, but it's definitely very important because we don't want to do all those surveys. Yeah, well, it's somewhere hidden here, I guess. We can talk about sampling here. But it's extremely important. We don't want to send out all those surveys every month to everyone all the time. Then response rates will drop very quickly and we don't have any information. So that's one. Another thing is, and to be honest, sometimes we struggle a little bit with that as well, because of the tooling and being quick in the reporting, but we want to show them what's in it for them as soon as possible. So if you fill in a survey, you want to provide them with a simple report at a minimum to show them what their answers were, maybe compared to internal benchmarking. That's not always possible with all the surveys we do. We post monthly or quarterly, we post the results on our intranet sites and refer to them as well. So, and the way we ask, we're trying to step up in terms of experience, ironically. It should be fun as well and as easy as possible for them to fill in those surveys and on multiple platforms and stuff like that. So we're trying to make it as engaging as possible, but we're making there a little bit more small steps than bigger steps. And well, my first answer was on sampling, survey fatigue, and think about who needs to have this survey anyway. Maybe without sampling, you can exclude a lot of people because they don't have any interest in that survey.
Yeah, and the second part was mostly, for example, around, I guess you've got a lot of populations all around the world. How do you translate the questions every time? How that is handled from your team?
You mean literally translating to other languages? Is that?
Questions, so that you...
So we provide our surveys in 5 languages, I think. Dutch, English, French, German, and I think Portuguese. You're in Brazil as well. I think those are the 5 standard ones, but in our process of survey designing, we translate always when we go global. It's not always that we go global for our surveys, but when we do, we translate it in multiple languages. Thanks for the questions. Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a great 2 days.